Have you ever gotten to the end of a sales call and your stomach just drops because you know you didn't lead it? You danced around price. You were nice, but you weren't particularly clear. And when she says to you, "This is amazing, let me think about it," you hang up and you start negotiating with yourself. Maybe I'm not cut out for sales. Maybe I should lower my price. Maybe I should do something else. Let's pause right here, because if you're a woman coach or consultant who's selling high-ticket services, it is rarely because you're not capable. It is often that you have been taught a sales model that feels like you have to choose between being genuine and being effective, or being feminine and being direct, or being of service versus closing. And that is exactly the reason so many brilliant women entrepreneurs end up underpricing, over-delivering, and just feeling ick about sales. By the end of our time together today, you're going to feel very differently about sales. You are going to be clear, you're going to be calm, and frankly, you're going to be a little bit relieved. I am going to share with you a feminine framework for sales that you can begin applying on your very next sales call. But before we go there, let me share a story with you about a client of ours, Sue. Sue is a change management specialist and very accomplished woman, but hated sales, and really got in her head about it. And so as a result, her sales calls were more like coaching calls where she was giving free coaching or over-explaining her services. She ended up dropping her prices, and frankly, her business was really at risk. And so the first thing we did is we worked on her mindset. And I'm happy to say that since Sue has been applying what we call the softer side of sales, her business has soared. And this is a picture of Sue, who showed up at one of our group coaching calls with a pillow that she had made saying sales is helping, to remind her of that mindset shift that she had made. And by the way, if you're listening to this thinking, okay, that makes sense, but I'd really like somebody to help me apply it to my specific business and to coach me on the sales conversation, schedule a call with me and I'll take a look at your sales process and your sales approach, and together we can see if we can build a sales approach that feels really authentic to you. So schedule a call. Okay, let's get into it. Step number one, redefine selling. If there is one mindset change that can have the greatest impact on your sales success, it's this. Sales is not something that you do to someone. It is something that you do for someone. So take a breath there and let that land, because it's very subtle and very nuanced, but when you apply it, everything changes. You are more comfortable. You are more effective. You are more genuine and authentic. I know this might sound small, but honestly, it is a game changer, because high ticket sales really requires leadership, not pressure, but leadership. And leadership requires intention. So here's a quick fix for you. Before your next sales call, I want you to think about your intention. And it might be something like, I really just want to connect with this person, or deeply understand their problems, opportunities, and needs to see if I can help them. Or as simple as, my intention is to be of service, because when you do that, you show up differently. Your energy is different. Your nervous system is different, and you're more successful. So now let me share with you what a client wrote. Her name is Erin, and she said, I had a sales call today and I heard your voice in my head the whole time saying the most important thing is not the sale. I feel completely different after this call, like I now have the roadmap. It all flowed so naturally and authentically. I felt like a really courageous version of myself, leaning in to be with the client during her moments of hesitation rather than shying away. You really helped me get in there in a new way, and she signed for a year-long contract. So while this seems very subtle, it can make all the difference in the world. We see it every day. So even if you have to put a sticky note on your computer to remind you of setting that intention before a sales call, I promise you, you will start to feel differently about sales and be more successful at the same time. So if you're sitting there thinking, this makes total sense, but every time I get on a call and it comes time to talk about price, my mindset gets completely hijacked. Schedule a call with me. That's exactly what we work on in the Precision Sales Accelerator using our feminine blueprint formula and the softer side of sales. You really don't have to do this alone. So schedule a call and we'll spend some time talking about your business and your sales mindset and see if you're a good fit for the program. Step number 2. Think about collaboration instead of tactics. So let's talk about the ick factor for a second in sales. I believe that comes from a situation where a salesperson's need to sell and to close trumps the prospects need to buy. And so they feel like they're pushed in a corner when we've all been there and it doesn't feel very good at all. And traditional masculine approaches to sales have a very rigid framework, and it starts with developing rapport and conducting a needs analysis and presenting your solution and handling objections and closing. And while it's good to have a flow, certainly, to your sales conversations, we want to think about it a little bit differently. Instead of building rapport, think about truly wanting to develop a connection with the person that you're talking to. Instead of conducting a needs analysis, think about the importance of genuinely understanding this person's specific situations, their problems, their needs, so that you can determine if in fact you can or cannot help them. Instead of handling objections, we want to be able to help the client resolve their own objections. And instead of closing, we want to be able to detach from the outcome, which is often easier said than done. But when we detach from the outcome, we really are putting the client's needs first. Now, I do want to say that the softer side of sales is not a passive process. In fact, when you find and know that you can absolutely help someone get to where they want to go, you have an obligation to help them get over any obstacles that are in their way. Let's pause here for a minute. I want to talk about this idea of detachment. It does not mean that you don't care. In fact, it means that you care deeply. But instead of caring about you getting the sale, what you're most concerned about is understanding this person's problems, aspirations, and challenges so that you can determine if in fact you can really help them. It's not pushing. It is not gripping like everything depends on it. It means you're making it all about them, and that's when you become magnetic. High-ticket buyers do not like to buy from people who are needy. They can sense it right away. So here's a practical thing that you can do on your next sales call. When it comes time to pitch, don't think about it as pitching. Think about it as prescribing. Say something like, "Thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. It's given me real insight into where you currently are and where you want to go. I actually have a recommendation for you. Would you like to hear it?" This sentence changes everything because you are allowing them to collaborate with you and inviting them to say yes or no on whether they want to move forward and hear your recommendation. Because you are now leading, not pushing. So let's talk about leadership for a second. Great salespeople are in fact great leaders. They create a climate of trust and they facilitate a conversation where the prospect feels comfortable sharing their current situation and their aspirations and those challenges in between, so that the client feels empowered in decision making. By the way, if you're selling to women, women don't like to feel disempowered. They will not make a positive decision for themselves if they are. And in fact, this goes counter to the traditional bro tactics of let them feel their pain, get into their pain. Women know what their pain is. What they don't know is what to do about it. And they don't even know if they're necessarily going to be able to get to the transformation that they're looking for. And that is where you come in, where we come in as sales leaders, is to help them see a new future for themselves and really feel empowered in their decision making. In my sales calls, I actually say, let's do a magic wand exercise. And I ask them to share with me, if everything went perfectly, what would your business and your life look like in 2 years? And I get them talking about it. And I ask follow-up questions like, what would that feel like for you? And what would the impact be on those around you? Because what I want to do is I want them to see this new vision of themselves and believe that it can, in fact, be a reality for them. I want them to feel seen and heard and understood. And I want them to know that I am very excited about working with them and helping them to achieve their dream. Step number 3, learn to sell in the heart zone, where high ticket decisions are made. So we know from research that decision making is largely emotional. And I don't care how buttoned up or analytical the person is that you're talking to. We make decisions based on emotion, and then we will often justify those decisions using logic. So this means that we need to get into those emotions. So I want to share with you a model. There are 2 types of needs. There are business needs, which is what we've come together to talk about right in this sales conversation. And then there are personal needs that may fall aside from that business conversation. Some of these needs are stated and some of them are unstated. So think about a quadrant here. We have business, we have personal needs, we have some that are stated and some that are unstated. A prospect's willingness to share with you the unstated business and personal needs has a lot to do with their trust. And it also has a lot to do with the questions that we ask them and how willing we are going to go to get outside of the business stated needs. Now, most conversations happen and stay in that quadrant number 1. Yet, most deals close in quadrants 2, 3, and 4. So how do you get there? You get there by creating a climate of trust and asking the right questions and listening with an intent to learn that will allow you to ask appropriate follow-up questions. You want to be asking things like, tell me more, or saying things like, tell me more. Or when you hear a particular word, if they say something like, well, it's complicated, can you say more about complicated? Asking questions like, what would it mean to you if this actually worked? Or conversely, what happens if you don't address this? And of course, why? You don't want to make it sound like an interrogation, but when you ask the question why, it forces them to go a little bit deeper and get to the truth behind what they are looking to accomplish. When you are able to get out of what we call the safe zone and go into the heart zone, magic happens. In fact, I want to share with you one of our clients, Kristen, who posted on our platform that I've been using the heart-centered questions and they really work. I've been following those questions in the B2B meeting flow to a T. I now have 4 100,000 proposals in progress. I think she closed 3 of those. Those 2 resources are magic. So that's what happens when you get into the heart zone. Step number 4, sell the destination, not the road trip. A lot of women get really uncomfortable when it comes to presenting their offer, and we often see them putting in way too much detail. You'll get this, and you'll get this, and you'll get that. When in fact, what the client wants is to have confidence in you, that you have the roadmap to get them to where they want to go. And the more detail you include, the muddier it gets and and the harder it is for them to make a decision. So let me give you a structure that might help you here. First, we want to confirm the fit. Obviously, we don't want to be pitching our services to someone who we're not confident we can help. But once we do that, I might say something like, thank you so much for sharing all of that information with me. I really have a good sense of where you currently are and where you want to go. And I am confident that our program would, in fact, be able to get you there. Would you like to hear about how we work with women like you? So, assuming they say yes, that they do want to hear about your offer, and most people do, then I would proceed focusing on the top 3 or 4 things that were most important to them. So, for example, in my world, it may be that they are concerned about their niche, that they're not niched down enough. I will reflect back to them about, you had mentioned to me, Mary, that one thing that you're worried about is niching down. You know you should be more specifically concentrated on an ideal client, but you're a little afraid to do that because it feels like you're cutting yourself off from opportunity. And so let me tell you how we would approach niching down your business. So what I've done is I've created the context, and then I'm going to tell her a little bit about how we do that. But I don't want to get into the weeds here. I just want her to have the confidence in me that I can help her get where she wants to go. So once you have reviewed your offer in the context of their most pressing needs, I might then ask them what questions they may have. And of course, they may have some specific questions about length of time and number of coaching sessions and things like that, which of course you're going to answer. The idea is not to bombard them with information, but just give them the minimum information that they need so they feel confident in their decisions. After I've answered their questions, I will often ask them, where do you want to go from here? And that gives them some kind of agency in this process as well. But what often happens is they will ask me about the investment. Really important, before I get to the investment, I want to understand any objections that may be in the way. And a great way to do that is by using a scale. So I'll often say to them, there's a question that I like to ask before getting into the discussion around the investment. And it gives me a sense of level of commitment and that kind of thing. And the question is, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being, oh my gosh, this feels so right for me. It's feeling really good and I think I want to move forward, to a 0 being the opposite of that. Where are you on that scale? And if they answer 8 or above, anything less than a 10, frankly, I'll ask them, okay, so what's in the way of the 8 and the 10? And this is where obstacles like timing may come up, or confidence in their ability to do it, or needing to check with their partner, those kinds of non-financial obstacles that are in their way. And I want to be able to work through that with them before we talk about the investment. And then I'll sometimes check in with them again and say, okay, now that you understand that, this about the program, where are you now? And often they'll say, okay, I'm at a 10. And then we talk about the investment. And then, of course, there might be objections associated with that investment. But there's something that I want to make absolutely clear here, is that the softer side of sales is not a passive process. In fact, when you have an ideal client who you absolutely know that you can help, you have an obligation to help them get over what other obstacles are in their way. Again, this is a distinction between the bro marketing tactic of handling their objection to helping them resolve any objections that might be in their way. So it's a collaborative process here. All right, so now let's talk about how we help our clients resolve their objection. And the first thing is that we do not want them to feel that we are going to be aggressive or defensive or even passive for that matter. And the best way to do that is to let them know that you heard them. So let's say that the objection is around timing, and she says, I'm just not sure the time is right. What I might say is something like, timing is really important. Let's talk about that. Then the next step is to get to the heart of it. And that's where we want to get her talking to find out what she means by the timing not being right. Now, somebody could say that, and there could be 10 different reasons. It could be that they're going on vacation. It could be a financial objection where the timing at this time, they don't have the funds. It could be that they're taking a course and they don't want to start something else until they've completed it. It could be a whole host of things. And we can't help our clients resolve their objections if we don't understand what it really is. So you've got to get to the heart of it by asking questions. Okay, so now that we've gotten to the heart of it, what we want to do is take that objection and turn it into an objective. And what I mean by this is we are taking what once was an obstacle, we're reframing it in a way where we may be able to problem solve around it. So let's take the example of timing again. And let's say your clients, you find out through your questioning that the real concern is that your client doesn't want to be overwhelmed. And she is already got a number of things going on right now. What you might do is reframe that by saying something like, so if I understand you correctly, what we need to do is figure out a way to get you started towards meeting your goals while at the same time not having you feel overwhelmed. Is that right? And if she says yes, then we can go ahead and problem solve. So it may be that you get her started on a couple of things that are not going to take much time at all, but will still help her to make the progress that she wants to make. If she says no, then we just go back and we continue to ask some questions so that we can better understand the issue and again, reframe it. Now, this is not a magic wand. However, it is going to help you increase the chances of moving forward substantially. The good news is that once you agree on the solution, there are no bro tactics of puppy dog closes or alternative closes or any of that nonsense. It very simply is asking if there's anything else. If there's not, moving on to next steps. If there is another objection, we're just going to go through the process again. We are going to acknowledge it. We are going to get to the heart of it. We are going to reframe it. And we are going to problem solve. So let's say it doesn't close. What do you do then? Well, if it is an absolutely ideal client who you know that you can help reach their goals and get the transformation that they want, again, you have an obligation to helping them to get over the obstacles. So it could be that the timing obstacle just could not be addressed, or it could be that their finances, they don't have the money to invest at this moment. What I recommend that you do in that case is ask them if they're agreeable to setting up a meeting, even if it's 3 or 6 months out. Get that meeting on the calendar. And if for some reason you don't do that, remember you've got to follow up. So as women, we have a tendency to not want to be annoying. Well, in today's world, and we see this all the time in our program, in today's world, people are really, really busy, and it's going to take more than 1, often 2, or even 3 follow-ups. And you can do that in a way that is warm and kind and in service. I often will send a final email, maybe after 4 times where I haven't heard from them. And say something like, and I'll put this in the subject line, I don't want to cross the line from being attentive to being annoying. And then I'll put in the body, please let me know if that is the case. And in most cases, I will get some kind of a response. And sometimes the response is, I'm just not interested. And you know what? That's great. That frees you up knowing that. So don't be concerned about follow-up and make sure that you are consistently following up with your clients. So if you take nothing from this, take this one thing. You can be very effective in sales while leaning into your feminine energy of collaboration and empathy and really being of service of your clients. So on your next sales call, I really want you to set that intention to be of service. I want you to get really curious about the needs and the situation and the aspirations of your client and take that leadership role. And then I want you to present in a way that is not going too much in the details, but really connects their needs to your offering and help them see themselves in the transformation. And then finally, if they object, again, don't get defensive. Get curious. And if you want help implementing any of this, if you want a sales process that feels authentic, yet is direct and consistently converts, schedule a call with me and we will talk about how the feminine blueprint formula and the softer side of sales can apply directly to your business. So schedule a call.